Hello everyone, I'm here with Sam Lucas, the founder of the non-profit organization based in Madagascar called Onja. Sam, tell us more about Onja.
Okay, so I think the logical place to start when explaining our organization is with the problem that we're addressing. So if you look at Madagascar, the majority of the most brilliant students won't finish high school or won't go on to university. And these brilliant students are essentially limited to low paying manual work. So there's this enormous waste where the most brilliant minds are not utilized. So along with this, I guess this huge waste, there's also a huge opportunity because essentially there's this giant pool of untapped talent that's left behind. So Onza is a way, I guess, to utilize that talent. So what we're doing is identifying students who are extremely talented but who don't have the means to complete their education. So we'll invite them to our school where they'll learn English and computer programming over 2 years. After those 2 years, they'll begin making software for clients in the US and in Europe, overseas, and they'll earn a really good salary that will change their and their families' lives. But on top of that, they'll help our organization generate an income for itself, which we'll use to educate more students. So this way we won't be reliant on donations at all, but it will be the students, I guess, brilliance and work that funds the operation.
So you're basically saying that once the student complete the program, they will work for Onza. How does it exactly work?
So say a student finishes their 2 years of education, which is, so that stage is completely free, right? Everything's provided for them that they need, food, accommodation, everything. But let's say they finish those 2 years, then they begin working for Onza in Madagascar. So a student will simply finish that school and then move on to our outsourcing agency. So that will be in the same place in Madagascar, and they'll start developing software for overseas clients. So there might be companies in, say, in Germany or in the UK, and they need an application made. So they can get in touch with our organization, Onza, and we'll develop that for them.
You came to Madagascar 2 years ago. So how did it all start?
Well, actually, Onza started about 4 or perhaps more than 4 years ago now, when I was a student at the University of Auckland. So, and myself and 8 volunteers from the University of Auckland and also professionals taught 2 of my former students in Cambodia, their names are Suruan and Visna, to make websites. And basically, after a year of these weekly Skype sessions, Suruan and Visna could make some pretty decent websites and started making money from their skill. So at that point, we sort of sat back and thought, look what we've done. We're just a bunch of volunteers and we've really given these guys an economically valuable skill. So we thought we should try and be doing something with this on a bigger scale. So at that point, I just graduated from the University of Auckland and actually took a job with Fisher and Paykel Healthcare. But virtually in all of my free time, I would be researching where Onza's model would be most impactful. So what we do is very specific. So it's really dependent, or the breadth of our impact is really dependent on where we would operate. And to all of that research, there was a clear winner in Madagascar. So I won't go into too much detail about why that is, but it's things like Madagascar is a very poor nation, obviously, but it also has a very low cost of living, which is important for any outsourcing operation. It also has reliable and reasonably affordable internet, which is rare in Africa, and a whole lot of other reasons that sort of contribute to our operation having potential to be extremely impactful here. So that's the point when I left my job and came to Madagascar. And yeah, so that was close to 2 years ago now. And I spent the first year or so just living in a small village. So I guess I'm a believer that if you're going to go somewhere to a completely foreign culture and try and change things, then you should first understand that culture and especially understand the lives of the people that you're trying to build something for. So I spent 1 year living in a little village, and I mean, yeah, that was an incredible experience, but I think I gained a lot from it. I had a great time. It was really hard, but most importantly, I guess, is I made a lot of friends and gained a true understanding of our target population, their sort of their daily life and the challenges and what's going well and sort of what needs to be worked on. And from there, we've sort of developed Onja's model further to really make sure that we're targeting the right population and that we're going to give them opportunities that or we're going to provide opportunities that are really valued by that population, I guess, which are my friends.
Interesting. How did you get to where you are now? I mean, with all the differences, the language, culture, and all the barriers. I'm sure everyone wants to know about that.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, I'm not gonna lie, it's been extremely hard work. But at the same time, I think as an organization, we're really rooted in the community. So I speak Malagasy, and that was part of the reason, I guess, for living in a small village where no one speaks the colonial language, which is French, and I don't speak that either. And obviously, no one speaks English either. So it was a real chance for me to learn to speak Malagasy, which I can speak reasonably well now. And I guess communication wise, I can express everything I need to in Malagasy. So a lot of the time I work only with people who don't speak English, and we sort of get by. We do, yeah, we overcome everything we need to, and we also have additionally we have people in the capital who speak English and who are also working on Onza. So we're starting to form like a really small but strong team to tackle all of our challenges.
Most of the time, you live in a village, right? Why don't you tell us what you do every day?
I guess a typical day, I'd wake up around 6 o'clock or 6:30, and my neighbor would say, "Oh, look, Toki, that's my name in Madagascar is Toki," and they'd say, "Toki, you slept in again," because of course they were up at 5:30 or whatever, and have breakfast. Generally, things take a long time. You know, if you need to cook, you need to find the firewood that you're going to cook with, or if you have charcoal, then that's good. But you still have to light the fire, get it all going. If you need water, I need to go to the pump to get that. So everything sort of adds up and takes a lot of time. But say about 8 o'clock or so, or before then, I generally go to the fields with some friends and help them farm something. So that was a really good way to improve my Malagasy because, of course, you're always listening and talking to people while you're working. And it was also something I really enjoyed. You know, I learned a lot of new skills and virtually learned all of the stages of planting rice by hand, which is quite a complex and a very hard process. So that was a really I guess, good takeaway from all of that. So, say we get to around lunchtime, we come back and eat, and generally, the person's field who you're working in cooks for everyone that's working in the field. So, I'd usually join that and would eat something. And then everyone else would go back to the fields for the afternoon, but by that time, I'm probably a bit tired. And I go back to my house and probably work on Onza. So, we've been working on it all throughout, and most of the time when I was in my village, would be, I don't know, writing proposals or developing our aptitude exams that we use to identify the most talented students. Just the huge range of activities that we need to do. And then, yeah, have dinner and always talking to people. You know, wherever I go, everyone wants to have a chat, and people come to my house and have a chat, and yeah, the time goes pretty quickly with that sort of lifestyle, you know.
What makes Onja different from other organizations then?
I think with Onza, there's two really standout special parts to our model or our organization. So the first is our ability to scale in future. So while most typical NGOs say funded by donations, their impact is reliant on how many donations, how much money they can raise. So naturally, there's always sort of a ceiling that's reached pretty fast, and it's very hard to raise much money purely through donations. So the impact is really capped by that, I guess, factor. Whereas with Onza, will not be limited in that way. So the students themselves will be generating the income that's required to teach more students. And the more students that come, the more income the organization can generate, the more people it can reach and bring opportunities to. And we've estimated at this point that every student that studies with Onza will unlock that same opportunity to 7 others. So we should have this huge growth rate where we're able to scale our organization and offer opportunity to a huge number of young people. So that's, I think, the first part that's really special. But the second part that I've sort of come to realize over the last couple of years in Madagascar is the way that I think Madagascar and the countries that we operate in, exist in, will view us. So in my village, I got a real glimpse into how people view charity, and people will always sort of accept charity because I guess it helps them, right? And it's a good thing, it can improve their lives. But I also saw a real, almost like a loss of pride with charity. So people would actually say to me things like, we, in a way, things like we can't provide for ourselves, so we rely on a foreigner to help us, in like a sort of almost like a shameful kind of way. And that was, I guess, pretty surprising for me. But I think it's important because Onza will be viewed very differently, because it's not foreigners giving money and helping people out of sympathy or whatever. It's people, say in Madagascar, given an opportunity, working for that opportunity, improving their lives, but also making that opportunity available for others. So it's really the brilliance of the people in Madagascar that's sustaining the whole organization. So I think it's something that people will be very proud of.
Wow, that is so cool. Now, how would you advise students or anyone who listens to the interview who wants to benefit the world?
So I think there's a lot of ways you can benefit the world, right? And the path I've gone down is starting a non-profit with I guess, a new innovative model, and I can speak around that, I guess. And I'd say for anyone wanting to do that, firstly, you're going to need to believe in yourself and have huge determination, because at the end of the day, I think that's probably the key ingredient that's going to make or break the project or the organization. And I'd also suggest that people have a good look around and see what else is out there. Perhaps there's something already in existence that you could slip into, and you would you could see yourself being a part of. And that will save a lot of sort of the initial inefficient startup work. I think I'd also add that something I've seen is that if you look at sort of for-profit startup world, the business world, finance world, they've all sort of realized the value of, say, engineering graduates, or more broadly, people with sort of logical, creative backgrounds and minds. And I think the non-profit sort of sector could benefit just as much. But I guess it's traditionally a very non-innovative sector and sort of lags behind. So I would really encourage anyone with, engineering, science backgrounds in particular, to get involved where they can, and or if possible, in non-profits.
So, Sam, in crowdfunding's video, we see Jerome, an incredible student you found out of nowhere. How did you find him?
Yeah, so that's our first recruitment trip. Myself and a couple of others went to, I think, 7 different villages, all not too far from the village I lived in. and we tested students in each village. So I think we tested 250 students in all, and by testing, I mean we gave them our aptitude exams, which we've developed. So these exams identify students who will quickly pick up a new language. In our case, that's English, right? And it also tests their logical skills and other sort of raw attributes that give us an indication of whether they'll become good computer programmers or not. And of the 250 students who sat that test, Jerome scored the highest out of anyone, despite being one of the youngest to take it. And just by crazy chance, I happen to know his teacher really well, and he confirms that Jerome is consistently top of his class and is extremely motivated too. So it's all green lights really. And the video that we made, the crowdfunding video, we did in one weekend actually. So some volunteers from the capital in Tananarive came and we shot that. And I guess you don't really see what's going on behind the scenes, but we had a lot of challenges that weekend. But Jerome, I mean, you can see from the video, he's a star. You know, he just grabbed the opportunity and ran with it and did an amazing job, obviously. So,
Right.
but I guess I mean, he's our one of our students, but all of our students will be in similar situations. So they're incredibly talented, intelligent, but just don't have the opportunities they need. So Jerome probably wouldn't make it to high school, to upper secondary school. So I guess, it gives you an idea of the people that we exist to provide opportunity for.
That's really cool. What Onja is doing. It's like finding precious gems, right?
Yeah. And actually, that's our Malagasy motto here, if you like. Is, I guess, a little bit of a comparison there, because Madagascar is a very rich country in terms of resources. So there's gold, you know, there's sapphires, there's all these rare earth metals that are extremely valuable, and people see that. You know, they see people come from overseas to extract these things and take them home or whatever. But what they overlook are perhaps the most precious resource of all, which are all these people like Jerome, you know, who are incredibly talented but don't have opportunities. So our motto is Timisi Harina Mahalio Nioluna, which means there's no more valuable resource than people themselves.
Wow, this is great. So good luck, Sam, with Onja. I believe that it's going to make a great difference in Madagascar and the world.
Thanks, Tina.